What is up, everybody? Welcome into the DNBA live show presented by Legal Pete's. That was a fantastic air horn. Patrick did not participate though. There was no air horn.
Has he now been banished because of his lack of participation? Wow.
I really wanted to have him on the show, but unfortunately he's done.
You're kind of a jerk with the controls, I have to say.
It's
drunk with power.
I can't control myself. It's so easy just to say, you know what, Harrison, get out of here. I am joined today, as always, by my esteemed colleagues. Seated to my top right, it's Brendan Vogt.
It's cracking, friends. I don't know if I'm esteemed anymore. I feel like I've been pegged down a level or two.
You're just regular steamed. In the bottom right, it's Eric. You know him as D-Line Co.
Yeah, are we colleagues?
We are colleagues. Actually, with you, I don't know. You're just kind of around.
You guys are second colleagues.
Yeah.
Second colleague.
Yeah, like
Once
one
removed.
second, I was just gonna say second colleague, one removed. Absolutely.
And then down to the bottom left, the hat backwards, looking exactly like he's ready to play. What's the movie I'm thinking of? White Men Can't Jump. White Men Can't Jump.
Wow, that is a very young Woody look there. That's awesome.
Man, I wish I was in White Man Can't Jump.
Weren't you that for Halloween one time?
No, it was Jackie.
It was Jackie Moon. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Come on.
Same wheelhouse.
Killer costume, by the way, man. I just got to carry around a basketball the whole night. Like, I was in heaven.
The Halloween costume really is like, there could be a good one, but it's so uncomfortable that it like sucks to be out or whatever.
Yeah.
A good Halloween costume is like comfortable, regular clothes that everybody recognizes.
Yeah, Jackie Moon was perfect.
That's
reusable jersey, just like everybody knows what you are.
The Big Lebowski, man. You just wear a bathrobe and you drink White Russians all night. I've done it 5 times.
You get to pretend to be the Big Lebowski, which is like everybody wants to act like that. That's the one way you can actually do it.
Yeah.
That's acceptable.
Versus
Whatever,
like
man.
versus like the people that are like, we're gonna be Lego Man. We're gonna make a costume out of a cardboard box, and it's like looks awesome, but then you're imprisoned by your costume all night, and like it just gets shredded.
You get stuck in the door on the way to the club.
Yeah. This guy in my high school once was a kissing booth.
Smart. Did it work?
I think it like actually worked a little bit.
I bet
Crazy.
it did.
Innovative.
That's
He was a real innovative mind.
Every other night of the week, like every other day of the year, that's like a Me Too story. But on Halloween, it's like,
Jesus.
Get out of here, man. Get him out of here.
You know what?
Get him out of here.
Just before we get canceled.
We got to bring on my buddy Patrick, the host of Movies and Shit podcast and one of my best friends, who's also a Michael Jordan expert / aficionado. JP, what's happening, brother?
More aficionado. Thanks for having me back, everybody. I'm excited for this deep dive into the Rocky Balboa cinematic universe.
let's go.
Spirited debate.
You know what,
Spirited
Patrick?
debate.
I have to tell you, I rewatched it yesterday. It's still bad.
Wow, how bored were you? You had to
That was
rewatch
true.
Rocky, man.
That's definitely not a true story, but it was a great fake story.
It's
That
not.
was a good pump fake.
It was a really good.
He got you in the air, then.
So, of course, today, guys, the episode, we're going to be talking a lot about the Michael Jordan episodes 3 and 4, which I felt like were even better than 1 and 2. I don't know how you guys felt. And then we're going to bounce around the internet as we always do, looking at some of the funniest stuff that popped up today. There is some news with the Nuggets that we're going to push back a little bit. And then at the end of the show, we're going to play the steps. So if you want to try to climb the steps, you're going to want to hop in the Nuggets Discord and then join when we put out the link. But first of all, so I thought episode 3 was pretty good. Episode 4 I thought was phenomenal. And like I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed the first week, but I enjoyed this week even more. What did you think, Patrick?
The first two were character development, right? We got a little Pippen, we got a little Jordan.
Yeah.
And I know this one was Rodman, but the nice thing about that is he ties in so perfectly with the villains of the entire Bulls, climbing up to that mountain. And it just, this shouldn't be a real story. How is this story real? Like Ron Harper is on Cleveland that Jordan hits the shot against. And this is all backstory for what we're watching the last season, The Last Dance. And then we get crazy freaking Rodman, with the Pistons. And then he ties in with Phil. Like, honestly, I'd never heard that much about Phil's playing days. Obviously I knew he was.
I wanted more.
Counter. Yeah, I know. It was great.
Read his book. His book, he goes into that a lot. It's really good stuff.
Yeah.
The 11 championship rings? Because then he have two.
The soul of
have, like, what's the other one called? The Phil Jackson.
I can't remember.
My 6 months in Puerto Rico.
Dude,
first of all, I was reading every.
It is a different era now because like when I was watching that, I was like, man, I don't think I would have had it in me to even try back then. Yeah. Like, we're gonna ship you down here. This is the beginning of your coaching career.
Yeah, but Phil was all about that though. Like for him, I'm sure it was like, I got to go to Puerto Rico. I've never been, and back then Puerto Rico was even different, So
right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Phil is great. So you talked about is Rodman and Phil was this last episode. Vogt and Harrison. How much context did you have for Dennis Rodman? Like, what was your impression of Dennis Rodman prior to last night?
He's the dude with the hair and the dude with the surprising North Korean foreign relations. Like,
very surprising.
That's really.
He's going through a tough time right now, probably.
Yeah, his buddy.
I mean,
Dennis Rodman.
He can't get any information. Just wants to know.
You always hate to lose a professional connection.
But what about just as far as a talent goes? Like, what's your impression of Dennis Rodman, the talent, Harrison? But prior to last night.
Yeah, I knew Dennis Rodman was obviously all about rebounding. I did have to go back and look at his basketball reference to just see how absurd the rebounding numbers were. I mean, this guy averaged 19 rebounds a game in 92 with the Pistons.
Wow. A game.
18 in the next year, 17 the next year. Like, it was absurd, the numbers he was putting up. I did not know Dennis Rodman was regarded as the all-around defender that everybody talked about that he was in this documentary. Who was it that said he was the best defender he's ever seen? So I knew he was the rebounder. I didn't know he was the all-around defender.
Was it Larry Bird? It was somebody talking about him guarding Larry Bird, right? They're like, nobody shut down Larry, and he was shutting down Larry or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I also I wanted to ask you guys, like, the painting Rodman as a star, like such a role player that he reached star level, is that revisionist history, or was that the perspective back then as well? Was he on that kind of level?
I honestly think the stardom came from his antics. Not that he wasn't worthy of it, but like he was doing the same stuff late in the Pistons run, right? But we didn't really know him. And then, you date Madonna, you date Carmen Electra, you change your hair, and then you're doing all the same crazy stuff. And, at that point, it's kind of hard to ignore. Anyway.
We call that's the Kyle Kuzma effect. You go to the Lakers and then everybody knows you, but they shouldn't.
I didn't know who Birdman was until he was much more colorful.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
I mean,
tattooing. Yeah. Rodman was for real weird though, because I do feel like even Birdman a little bit, like Birdman I think is actually weird as well, but there's a little bit of a like winking at yourself, kind of a like how wacky am I? And with Kuzma 100%, that's like all there is. I'm sure Kuzma's actually a super normal dude, and maybe oh no man, I think Kyle Kuzma.
Well, I just think he's like super duper insecure, right? So I guess in that
Kuzma?
sense he's like
So?
Oh yeah.
What I'm saying is, I don't know that Kuzma's an eccentric, right? Like, I
feel
feel like he still wants to be cool. And
I think he's overcompensating. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Rodman's
somehow Rodman showing up like in a wedding dress just on a Tuesday wasn't as weird then as it is now. Like, I don't know how. Usually it's the opposite way, and it's like, oh, we were very conservative then, and now we're kind of used to that. Watching this stuff over again. It strikes me as stranger because you're thinking about an all-time great team, maybe the all-time great team, and you're like, and also they had that guy. Remember, he was just like naked on his book, and then he disappeared for a week.
And also, it's like like nothing like that has happened since. There's not been like another player or another human, frankly, that's like, unless you're talking about like maybe Lady Gaga. Like, I don't know any other Dennis Rodman comps culturally that we can draw.
Lady Gaga.
Well, maybe Lady Gaga actually fits.
You're the second person I've heard compare Dennis Rodman to Lady Gaga.
It's like pure spectacle. He's like Liberace.
No, yeah.
But I honestly think Lady Gaga. See, one of the things that we're taking away from this series, I think, is how authentic this team was. Like they just come across as very authentic. They're not packaged. Even MJ at the time is like, because there weren't cameras in their face and there wasn't 24/7 analysis, among many other things. And I think that's the thing with Rodman was, he for real was a weirdo.
Oh,
like he for
dude,
real was a kind of a different dude.
You can't go to the levels he went and have it be artifice. I mean, there's just no. At a certain point, you're like, what am I doing? Like, I'm the best defensive player in the NBA, and I just spray painted myself with gold glitter. Like, what am I doing?
So one thing I will say though about Rodman is, and it's funny, I was listening to Bill Simmons' podcast today, and he even put this on Twitter. He's like, "Is Rodman interesting?" And I saw everybody just kind of like booed him. I was like, "What the F are you talking about?" Of course he is. But I actually kind of see Bill Simmons' point in this one way. I think to people like Vogt and Harrison getting their first look at him, it's like, yeah, this guy's super interesting, and like there are parts of him that are very interesting. But it's not like he's not Andy Warhol, right? Like there's not this like super depth to him. He's just a weird dude, and like once you understand the weirdness, then he's just a guy that likes to go to North Korea and stuff. I don't know that he's a genius.
He enjoyed the show too.
Yeah,
right?
he's not a
Like,
genius.
Performance art was like his thing. Like it's not like he wasn't aware he was putting on a show.
Right.
Like walking out to that motorcycle with people around, drinking the beer and then getting on and leaving and cranking it up. Like, I'm not saying that wasn't him, but he also wanted to put on a show, that he had a performance quality.
He's definitely like, he is especially not a genius. He just is like, he just sort of like found a lane where he could just do. It's like people whose personalities are or like their sense of humor is like putting on a wig, and they're like, "Is this hilarious, guy?" And you're like,
but so for example, to compare him to another '90s icon, I think Mike Tyson is genuinely fascinating. Like one of the most interesting people on earth, and Rodman's not that, right? Like Rodman is the same type of face tattoo guy, but he's not. I don't know. There's not the depth. So in that regard, I understand it. And if you've already heard all the Rodman stories, you didn't really learn anything new. Did you learn anything new about Rodman last night, Patrick?
No, I don't think I didn't know that. I honestly did not remember that he disappeared. I was trying to remember if they downplayed that and they told the media for a while, he's on a break, he's on injured reserve or something. Because I did not remember that I remembered he was gone for parts of the season. I didn't remember that they like didn't know where he was, and they were like, "Hey, he was supposed to be back 3 days ago." And I'm also, the thing I'm most fascinated by from this whole series, I really, really now want to know what MJ found in his bed when he said, in addition to Carmen Electra.
I'm not going to tell you. Because I do have this great story here. You can unmute yourself once I click.
He didn't come back on time. Ready to go get his ass out of bed. And I'm not going to say what's in his bed and where he was and blah, blah, blah.
There's a knock on the door. It's Michael Jordan.
She's going to say it, though. She has no issue saying it.
So did you guys see the conflicting report, though, about how they actually picked him up out of Chicago and not Vegas?
Oh, really?
Did you guys catch that?
Really?
Yeah.
No.
So the story is that he was in Vegas, but he came back to Chicago and was having like a staycation. And they actually got him in Chicago.
Staycation.
This whole documentary is called into question. I don't believe anything now.
Yeah, up is down, left is right. It's really funny. Can you imagine like just shenanigans you pulled? How many years ago now are we talking about? 20 plus, and you get called on them, and it becomes part of the news cycle 20 plus years later.
Yeah.
Like,
so as I was thinking about this Rodman sabbatical, LeBron James did the same thing a couple years ago, just without like the going to Vegas. He just went to Miami.
Same thing feels different.
He did the 2019 version of Rodman.
Remember when they went looking for LeBron and Wade was hiding under a sheet in the corner?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't want to get him in trouble.
They're like, we just couldn't get him to stop working out. It's not quite the same thing.
Yeah.
Hey,
this is like your beloved Giants, Brendan.
Where would Jokic go if he was to take a 72-hour getaway?
Soundboard. He just goes home without telling anyone.
It's like all flight time. If
he would just go to like a horse ranch. What are you talking about? He would
Kentucky Downs.
You would just find him in stables tending to horses.
Hey, who tweeted out that Dennis Rodman invented load management? Did you guys see that one?
No. I did see that.
Oh, it made me laugh so hard. I thought that was the funny. I can't remember who did it though. It was the funniest thing.
I'm telling you, man. I think we laugh, but maybe there is something to like Jokic has a little Rodman in him. Like there is a little. I don't think he's like a crazy, doing.
No, I made that comparison too. Yeah.
Like he's just different. He's not. He breaks the mold of what a typical NBA player is. So maybe you just need to be like, Jokic needs 2 weeks, bro. Like we just.
He also sees the whole machine outside of the actual basketball part as bullshit, as a circus.
And that brings us to what's maybe the most interesting thing about him is he's not a genius or this performative artist 24/7, but Jordan went out of his way. He only defends 2 people really, like ever, Scotty, and really he defends Rodman quite a bit. And he even called him one of the smartest players he's ever played with, which again goes counter. Like, I think that's the thing about Rodman is he's one of the best defenders, the best rebound. Think about if you broke every skill down, how many guys are the best at 2 things? Like almost none.
Does this make you rethink at all? We always think about Jordan and Kobe on the you better have worked as hard as they did, right? And I think that's still true. But do you ever think like, okay, occasionally somebody comes along, Michael's about winning, Kobe would be about winning. If you can get it done and you're still getting it done, all right, you're not coming to practice or you're not playing hard in practice. I think the minute you don't show up on the court for a game, like Dennis, screwed up and got ejected, then he'd be mad. But it kind of makes me feel like now, if you suck, no matter how hard you work, Jordan's still gonna hate you.
Dude, I'm telling you, like Jordan
earn his respect back.
It wasn't work ethic. It was. Can you help me or not?
Yeah, it was the total. It was everybody gets a score and it's your total score. If you're good enough, only if you work hard. But Rodman's like, no, you're good enough whether you work hard or not. Like he's useful.
This guy's okay. F you. You're okay. You're all right.
Adam, I can't believe you didn't play the. We're talking about practice drop. What's wrong with you?
Oh, I don't have that drop yet.
What's wrong with you, man?
I know. Well, I'll have to take an L.
I thought that part where Rodman was
ill-timed, but I'll still accept it.
That's a little late, but it's fine.
I thought that part where Rodman was talking about how he practiced rebounding and just like how he was kind of acting out, how he would practice where each player's shot would go and just really study it. I thought that was just like awesome. I could have watched that for like 5 minutes.
The best rebounders ever talk about it in ways that we wouldn't even think about, right? Kevin Love had a great interview as well a while back about just the angles he looks at and takes to the ball. And, think about a guy like Love who was not the freak athlete that Rodman was. He's a workhorse mostly, but Love is not like a guy that gets very high off the ground. Yet he's one of the best rebounders in the NBA year after year. Like this is a skill set. This is an art,
Right.
So also that brings us to another point about his athleticism, because the story about him going on that bender and then coming back and just being faster than everyone, like, is kind of an all-timer.
He was in his 30s, right?
He was not young.
He was older than Jordan. I know that.
And he comes in off of like 7 days of drugs and alcohol and just is like, you know what? I'm going to just beat everybody.
You have to run that.
Did you guys see what he was wearing when he walked into practice that day? No. He was wearing like pajama pants.
Yeah. But that Jordan story was so dope about the Indian sprints and how they were just like, he was ready to be slowed down and then he couldn't keep up with them. It's like,
look at
this guy is interesting.
This is one of the all-time great NBA photos of him just diving after this.
That is incredible, and there's 15 of those for Rodman. That also is performance art. Like,
he could have easily got the ball.
Could have gotten to a lot of balls, and he wanted to go full extension. And I'm not saying he never saved them, but it was more important to Superman.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
He's like the ultimate tryhard.
He'd hold the ball out, and come down with it. And it was
for certain types of players, I appreciate it. Like, okay, Torrey Craig does this a lot, where it's like steals the rebound that clearly he didn't need to steal or whatever. But there is something about like. The great ones do have a flair for the moment in their role. And I think like LeBron has this, I think Kobe had that, I think Michael has it, where they're like, we're out here to play a game and it's all about winning and nothing else. But every now and then a moment creeps in for like a little bit of a show. I mean, Magic was the ultimate, but as a little bit of show, and you milk it, give the people what they want.
How great was it when there's one clip, I feel like you'll probably remember it, where he and Michael come down and they've both got the rebound. It's right after like he's come to ask for the cigar and he's really turned it up and they're both grabbing the ball and holding it. And then Michael just, let's go. Yeah. Rodman looks at him, gives him the ball. It's like, you're going to have the ball. I get the rebound. It's like a perfect, like, I give you this and I give it right back. It was just
that was I think that was in the stage of Rodman's career where he would get the ball, and you would probably know this, Patrick, better than I would, but he would get the ball on an offensive rebound from like 3 feet away, and he would have the chance to go up and he would just pass it out like to make a point. All I do is rebound and defend. That's all I do. Nobody can ever tell me I like overstep my boundaries. That's all I do.
Then he'd throw his fist in the air and do a lap around all the players while the play was going on, like just do like one big circle. He was ridiculous.
Doesn't he has like at least 4 games of 0 points and 20+ rebounds.
Oh yeah. I think it was 7 because I think they said
7. The next most was 2. There's one other person I guess with 2, which is Canby. Outside of that, it's all 1. It's incredible how much he's mirroring Jordan. I mean, almost in a weird way, right? Like Jordan leads the league 7 years in a row scoring title, right? 10 overall. Rodman leads the league 7 years in a row rebounding. Like neither of those things have been done, You know what I mean? Well, Will Chamberlain for 7,
Yeah.
but like rare air for sure. And just same thing, like all of these games where no one else is even close. Like you look at Jordan's 50-point games in the playoffs, and it's like he's got 8, right? And other than Wilt, nobody's got more than 2, and one guy's got 8. And with Rodman, same thing you were just saying, 20-plus rebounds and no points, huh? So you and one other guy did it a couple times. Like that's
It just it shows you though, like what the concept of chemistry means. Like you have somebody that does one thing, you have somebody that does one thing, like, and
This is where we should go,
that's
though,
why it's like
because-
the best team of all time is it comes as a result.
100%. And this brings me back to the conversation we were having the other day about Barkley versus Draymond and how everybody was like kind of shitting on me for having that take. But you know what? That 96 through 98 Bulls team had either the best or second best player of the last 30 years. Pippen, who was like one of, if not the best defenders in the league at the time, and one of the most all-around players. Rodman, the best rebounder. Like they had guys that were so great at their narrowly defined roles, and then you had the star, and it's like, man, that's what I'm talking about. Guys that accept and embrace and dominate at their role is so much better than guys that can do everything, but at a poor level or at a medium level or even at
Swiss
a good
Army
but
knife,
not great level.
right.
Exactly.
Right.
So
I mean, there's just a threshold, and you just have to have an awareness of like where you are in that place, because eventually, like the furthest end of the spectrum is like DeMar DeRozan, right? Who plays like a superstar, is good enough to get that contract, but God, if that's the number one star on your team, you are screwed.
right.
And even more to your point, I already have 2 stars. I need a third best player. I want it to be Rodman over a guy who scores 20 a game all day.
Yeah.
I think there's even a level of Charles Barkley to this. And look, I don't know his career well enough to like really go in on this, but I do think there was something too. Barkley always had, was always wanting to be the guy. His team in Phoenix was really good. Was there a level to him that was like, like 20% less of me doing the thing I love, 20% more of me doing the thing I hate, and that's how we win? And I don't know.
When I was a kid growing up, I remember thinking, like, just because you thought of Barkley as this great rebounder and you thought of Rodman as this great rebounder. And I remember thinking, I'm talking when I was like maybe 12, 13 years old, man, that Bulls team was just the best team. But what if you could have substituted Barkley, for Rodman?
Right.
You'd be adding points to the rebounding. And that like couldn't have been more off. It's just like, he get 20 and 10, like 20 rebounds will go off and get you 20
That's not
points.
how it works.
Yeah, it's just looking at
It might have worked.
Well,
Right,
look,
right.
they may have still won, but it's just like you would never want to substitute that. You had the perfect fit. I mean, even Golden State was so overpowering the last 5 years. It's once you bring in KD,
Kevin Durant,
I mean, not that they're that's an embarrassment.
At a certain point, talent.
Embarrassment of riches. But all I'm saying is like they can't all 3 be involved to the maximum. I'm talking about Clay, Steph, and KD every night. Like some guys are just going to have to step back and kind of not do their special thing.
Or like if
When,
Rodman needed the ball anymore, or if Draymond needed the ball anymore, right, it wouldn't work.
Right, exactly.
Sorry, go ahead, Wood.
Ben Wallace is kind of this way too, right? Like he's just the guy who got all the rebounds.
And defended everybody,
and guarded everyone, like
100%. And but again, the Pistons team was the champion with no stars, right? Like it's like that was the starless team. But no, they had guys that were stars in the role that they were in.
Yeah.
If Dennis Rodman was on the Nuggets, though, would we complain about how he was messing up the spacing? Because no one was trusting his 3-point.
Kenneth Fareed.
Yeah. Oh, because actually, that's like one of the clearest indicators of a healthy Jokic offense is how well they rebound the ball. So I think it would. I think it could be very, very good. And Rodman and Jokic, I can't prove this. I think they would get along. I just think they're on the same wavelength.
Well, you don't think that he would sort of take the role like a supercharged Torrey Craig, where he's out on the wings and we all get mad because no one trusts his 3-point shot?
The difference between those two guys is
when
they
you
can
have-
do their job. One of them can do their job.
They would get along a lot better than David Robinson and Rodman. You remember that pairing? Like, couldn't have had a more awkward, like literally the choir boy, you know what I mean, who's going to work every day, and Dennis Rodman. What an unbelievable mismatch.
Quickly, I guess we talked about Phil. Now we've talked about Rodman. Let's move on to the main talking point here, which is Michael Jordan. And this one, Patrick and I talked last night as soon as this thing was over. We called each other. And to me, my number one fear, and it's still a little bit my fear, but my number one fear from this documentary was that we weren't going to get the real MJ. We were going to get MJ telling MJ's myth, right?
Right.
And we do get that a little bit. Let's not pretend we don't otherwise. Evidence A is the fact that Jerry Krause has no defense of himself obviously
He was actually
himself.
very tall. He wasn't even short.
No, but there's nobody like that's really speaking up for Jerry Krause. We just get to bash this dude, whatever. So those things happen. But I told Patrick this last night. I felt like I saw in these last 2 episodes more of Michael Jordan than I'd ever seen in all the interviews I've ever seen. And it's not that he did anything cool, but just like this interview here, I'll play the entire clip. Just this interview alone just first of all, it gives you 20 of the best faces, like subtle little faces you'll see all year. But also, it just the beast comes out. It comes out from
This is Isaiah talking about the walk-off.
Well, I know it's all bullshit.
Look at him.
Whatever he
look
says
around.
now, you know it wasn't his true actions then.
He's
it's
so
time
mad.
not to think about it.
He's not faking
Or the
it.
reaction
That's a
of the
real
public
anger.
that's kind of changed his perspective of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
You
want
can show me
I want
anything you
Jordan to
want.
chug that
There's
glass
no
of
way you can
tequila
convince
right
me
here.
you wasn't an asshole.
You can
The
show
way
me
they
anything
they
you
definitely
want.
got him
looking
drinking.
up. He has
You
to
know
keep
what?
doing
You
this
know what?
thing. It's like,
Did anybody see the John Sally interview after this? Where
I
John
did not.
Sally apparently for the first time
Yeah.
ever was like, he was like, I'm going to give it up. I've never been one to say it. I've always stuck with Magic. He's like, I
Yep.
think Jordan's the greatest player. Of course, I didn't say it for the longest time because I'm a Piston. But he made a point that I do think is true. He said, Jordan doesn't, let me finish this whole thought because everyone's going to disagree at first, but Jordan doesn't hate us as individuals. He hates the Pistons as the team that stood in his way. He said
agree.
he's friends with a ton of us. But my extra thought to that is he absolutely hates Lambeer. And
Yeah.
He absolutely hates Isaiah Thomas. There are
Yeah.
2 guys on that team that he, to this day, he would want to fight, right? And
Uh-huh.
everybody else, it's like, Joe Dumars, I can't believe they didn't show it on the doc, but Dumars stayed behind and shook hands when everyone
Yeah.
else walked off. They didn't show that at all. Like Jordan always said how much he
Yeah.
respected that because he had shook his hand every time they lost. But man, does he hate Isaiah, and man, does he hate Lambeer. I mean, they're not even like touching on Lambeer. Like he's hated Lambeer since like day 1 in the league.
Yeah.
So anyway.
But I mean, those guys did try to hurt him in particular.
They're the perfect enemy. This is why I said this should be a made-up story. They
I
are
know.
the ultimate enemy. If you're going to root for a team with the most charismatic star of all time that everyone's behind, give them the meanest team that wins by roughing people up and dirtying the game up for 3 years, right? That you just can't get past. Have them lose in a game 7. Where Michael's sidekick that he's relying on gets a terrible headache. I'm not downplaying the headache, but can't play, can't go.
You're not.
They still almost win. Yeah. They
Michael
still almost
is.
win.
Mike,
And
He's
then
like, now I'm not going to
face
argue.
when they talk about Scotty having a migraine.
He's like, I could argue.
I can't be in
I
his
guess
head.
he had a migraine.
Some
I'm not going to say he didn't have it.
people can't play with the flu. Some people can't play with the flu when you feel terrible. I'm surprised
Look at
that
this
didn't come up.
face. Oh my God, these faces are just all timers,
You
man.
know what? You know what I think it is with Isaiah Thomas is that,
that one should be deleted. That's
but,
Ugh.
but Isaiah Thomas, like I think Mike MJ always thought that they were like, there was that mutual respect, and that when Isaiah showed that he didn't give the respect to Michael Jordan that he thought he deserved or obviously deserved, it's like having a falling out with a friend all of a sudden. Like
Right,
I'm sure,
right,
like
sure.
I'm sure they've like never. He was like, oh well, I guess F you forever.
Well,
Like, and then-
also, you know how bad it destroyed MJ the way he was not to beat them, and the fact that, like he said, he was like, I shook their hands every time, and then
Right.
he wanted to murder people every time we were done, and then to have that after you sweep them and you're finally going to win, just walk off. I mean, obviously that he's not going to forgive that the way he's wired, but
Patrick, I love your points about MJ's story, and it's one of my favorite things about juxtaposing LeBron and MJ. Not to say who's better or what, but the MJ story is like scripted to a T. Like you couldn't write a better story.
Yeah.
And it's one thing that I've always found interesting about watching LeBron is like, well, if I was writing this, like who would write that he has to play with all those players and that he loses the first 3 or 4 times? And
Oh yeah.
like there was something compelling about LeBron. I'm not saying he's better or what, but having to maybe climb some steeper mountains and not getting there so many times. And that happened to MJ too, but there is a perfect Hollywood kind of, bow on MJ's story.
Patrick and I have talked about this a lot. MJ's story really is the perfect Hollywood story, and I think that's part of the mystique around him. Is one, he's good looking and charismatic, and he scores the points. Like Magic passed the ball, right? Like that was his gift, and different things like scoring is just sexier. And then on top of that, the whole he got beat down by these historic teams that were evil, and then climbed the mountain and never gave it up.
Jordan's is so script. You can grind Jordan's down to we're all 5 years old in the driveway for the first time. What are you doing? You're shooting shots, right? Like all respect to Dennis, you're not practicing your rebounds then, right? So like it comes that you're practicing hitting the game-winning shot. That was one of Jordan's great abilities. Then there's the evil team. And then even Magic being the one to pass the torch to him, right? It's almost like, I don't know. I don't know how that all lined up that way. And
don't you think some of it is like because of the way that Jordan went about his business? He sort of just like was on a path and slowly got better and better and better and better. And once he hit the zenith, like he just couldn't be knocked off. Like that's, and LeBron just kept starting his story over. Like he went to Miami, he ripped the beta. If LeBron had then gone back to Cleveland, won the title, and then just rode off into the sunset, we would have been like, wow, that was a Hollywood ending. Like he himself became the villain, came back to being the savior, but then he like went kind of like villain again. But now he's like, it's like flaccid villain, like nobody cares, you know.
I'm just saying there's like a sort of like unpredictability to LeBron's that's like different. Whereas Jordan's, I'm not saying anything's better or worse. So there's just something interesting about the way Jordan's, like you guys said, is like, I would reject that script. I would be like too corny, too on the nose. I don't believe it.
It also exists in the 90s more than it exists in the 20-teens, where we just want to hate everything, and every hero has like some quality that's dark about him.
The Hollywood part of LeBron, honestly, is the beginning and being the chosen one, getting drafted number 1, and going to your not hometown, but home city.
Oh yeah,
like,
for sure.
That story was already written, so I think when that got knocked off its kilter, like LeBron could be easily head and shoulders the greatest player of all time, and I still think that part works against him. Just in people's minds, because it's not LeBron's fault if a team broke up quicker than the Bulls were able to keep it together, or reboot with Rodman. That has nothing to do really with Jordan. As great as he was, much as he faced who was in front of him and seized the moment. So that's just one of those things where it's like LeBron lived real life, Jordan lived this. I mean, there was a lot of hurdles, but he lived this fantasy, like almost. You know what I mean? Even social media being. Not social media, but like just the way things were covered, it was just enough globally to make Jordan the biggest star we'd ever seen. He couldn't have been as big 5 years before, and he would have been uncovered a little more 5 years later. I mean, even with the Wizards, he was uncovered. Like it's almost like he was pinned in to this time where it worked for him. And didn't work against him, at least to an extent.
There's this thing in this, I think it's Outliers, the Malcolm Gladwell's book, where he talks about how all of the richest people in history exist within like 4 different eras. So you have like the Rockefellers and JP Morgans that all were like within 10 years of each other.
They're at the ground level.
Then you have the Bill Gateses and Steve Jobs of the world. Like, if you just happen to come in at the point in time where these industries are emerging that turn out to be mega, it could be. And I think with Jordan, it was exactly what you just said. Like, he came in exactly at the right moment for you to become.
But some of that is like,
icon.
But like some of that, is not so much with say the Rockefellers, but like Bill Gates, for example, like he created that thing, which then propelled him into that. And Jordan's greatness Jordan's greatness allowed the sport to grow to such a point where it could be.
Yeah, but Magic
and Larry
be
at that level.
There's no Jordan without Magic and Larry. They elevated the league. Yeah, they both have to happen.
But they didn't have.
I'm not trying to discredit Jordan.
No. I'm saying like I'm not saying it's. I don't think it's as just. I don't think he's just such a. I don't know. A benefactor of circumstance. Like I think he wrote his own story a lot more than we're giving him credit here.
I agree with that. I'm not trying to take any credit away, but I think it's a lot like Pippen, where I always feel like no matter what, I'm overrating or underrating Pippen. I can't ever feel it because I do not think with his own team. He's the guy we think, oh, if Jordan hadn't been around, he would have been this guy. But I think he's the best secondary running mate maybe ever, right? But those are two different skill sets. It's not like, you just plug him in and he's a winner and people underrated him. It's like it's just hard to quantify that in some ways. You know what I mean? And with Jordan, it's the same thing. All you can do is run your race, and the things that are in front of you can try to conquer them. And he did that probably better than anyone. And you could argue like a Bill Russell, you know what I mean, with like a different era and stuff. But some of it's circumstance.
But there's differences to like, just in terms of narrative power to like, oh man, like who's going to be the third wheel? Like Jordan needs a little bit of help the way all players do. Dennis Rodman, Phil Jackson, this is awesome. LeBron, it's like Mike Brown and Antoine Jameson. And we're like, dude, is this really how his career is going to go? Like, this is terrible.
Yeah. But go ahead.
I was going to say, well, you got to keep it moving a little bit here. But one of the things you always heard about Michael, and you really heard about this from Kobe copying Michael of what an asshole he was. And I always thought the stories we know about punching Kerr and this or that, I was always like, that doesn't make him an asshole. Like, he's a competitive guy or whatever.
Watching makes him an asshole.
No. I disagree.
Assault is
I disagree. Dude, who hasn't? First of all, everybody has either punched or been punched by their friend, in my opinion. I just like everybody, especially when you're talking about like competitive sports or this or that. Like,
I don't know if you can say a fact and then follow it with in my opinion.
Look,
like
I'm just saying, on any competitive team, there are really competitive moments where there's confrontation, and I just feel like, oh my god, he punched Steve Kerr. People act like it's the biggest deal. I'm like, dude, I'll bet you 50% of NBA teams have had a punch thrown at somebody.
For sure. Kerr said there were 3 of those a year. Kerr said it was a big story because it was Jordan. He's like, but we had 3 of those a year, and they weren't all Mike. And he's
but here's where I was going to go with it is watching this. I totally see why he's an asshole. Like there are some parts about it. He reminds me a lot of Bobby Axelrod in Billions. One of the lines they write about him is that he doesn't just want to win; he has to kill. Like he has to like completely And I feel like that was. We hear those stories about MJ, but you totally see it when he's sitting there. And what's the rookie's name that he's talking about drinking and going out all the time? What was his name?
Was it Burrell?
Burrell.
Yeah, he wasn't a rookie, but it was his first year on the Bulls.
Berating him.
Oh, when he's just berating him, there's like 12 opportunities for him to quit, and it to be like, okay, you went a little far, but whatever.
Look,
and he just keeps going.
You guys know
like,
this story may come up in the. So sorry if I'm spoiling anything, but Burrell was just after Jordan for like a full year to play him one-on-one, just constantly challenging. Do you guys know this story?
No.
Just constantly challenging him, and then Jordan's whole thing was like it wasn't just enough to like beat him, right? Like once he beat him, he's like, oh yeah, you want to play me because you can tell your grandkids, oh, I beat Michael Jordan. If you happen to win, he said, what am I going to tell them? Oh, I beat Scott Burrell. Like he had to like demoralize, like it's not worth it to me to play you, right? It wasn't enough to just beat him, be like, no, I'm still the best. He had to like tell him this isn't worth anything to me. Like you're not worthy of like this battle. But
what's the Jay-Z line? If you get me, you're famous. If I get you, you're brainless. What's the line? I'm fucked this up.
We're
not really cool enough. Anyway,
first time quoting Jay-Z.
I know Jordan. That's all I know. No, but you were saying like
get on my level, Eric. You don't know hip hop, dude. Come on, man.
I don't know what you're talking about. Whatever you did was not hip hop. Don't you feel like though he's like that particular
look at
thing?
This.
Also?
We have a fan, a thiker.
A thiker's definitely
12.
found.
Yeah, there was several thikers out there. You had to.
Well, when you're not a very big fan of someone, it's imperative that you spend your time consuming their content. So good on you, thiker. Well done.
Come hang out again, buddy. Good to see you.
So, same as Rodman, don't you kind of feel like with the Jordan punch thing that like you can't take people in slices, right? Everybody's like a full human being, and like you kind of take the good with the bad, right? You're gonna get that fire that's sometimes gonna burn you. Ultimately, you're like, oh, we got a lot of championships. Same thing with Rodman, right? Sometimes he's gonna go to Vegas or maybe Chicago with Carmen Electra, and then other times he's gonna get you 20 rebounds. So I think there is a balance, I think, to all this stuff. So.
The last thing I'll say, Horace Grant had the line of the entire show. Straight up bitches.
That one's gonna live forever.
Jeremy Grant's uncle, everybody. All right, let's start bringing some guests on. First one in the queue here is Jordan. Jordan, what's going on? Long time listener, long time caller.
Oh,
Jordan.
Yeah, I figured it's the 4th time on. I can go with the one name this time.
Jordan. Yeah, we have Jordan on to discuss Jordan. So my number one question, actually, Patrick, I want to ask you this. Where the hell's Kukoc?
Thanks for being on, Jordan. I'm going to take this one.
Well, I'm saying Jordan is here. We could throw to him, but
Kukoc is going to be a focus on this thing. You know he is. They got 6 episodes left, right? Like, we're going to hear all about how Jordan hated that Kukoc couldn't dribble with his right hand. It's going to be all over. even though Kukoc was great, right? It's going to
Yeah. It's interesting that he's not along. But here's what I wanted to ask you, Jordan, why I brought you on, or start bringing guests on. So we combine, girls, can we, sorry, girls are getting crazy over here. Dad's about to come out. What God, I lost my train of thought here. The Nuggets. So we watched the 2009 Nuggets, and I think it was such a stark contrast to watching our Nuggets, now, and being like, wow, they really do need the enforcer, and there's some kind of leadership that there's a vacuum there that this current Nuggets team has. And then watching this, and just seeing the charisma and toughness and intensity to him, to me, like the whole montage of like MJ decided to get bigger and like, all right, now he's working out and this or that and all that. I think contrasting both the 2009 team and this Jordan doc, and then looking at this Nuggets team, you go, man, they really do need some more seasoning and some leadership and some toughness. Like it's just very clear this Nuggets team. Do you feel this way at all, Jordan?
I would say, yeah. I wish what we had from the Nuggets was the Nuggets we saw a couple years ago. That was just fun and lots of ball movement and I mean, that's kind of what pushed them in that run that almost made the playoffs a couple years ago, and then we haven't really seen it since. But it seems like we're not going to get that back. So we do kind of need some more of that toughness and somebody to come in and make their presence felt, I guess is a good way to put it. I think
it is true. You may bring up that Game 82 loss because it was a storyline all of last season. Like, the guys brought it up a lot. They talked about it a lot as a driving force, and it reminds me of the Game 7 Pistons loss in a way where it was like they had a thing to be like, fuck, man, this hurts. And this year just did feel a little bit like they didn't. Do you
Shouldn't a Game 7 loss against Portland have been that same thing, though?
Yeah.
I mean, like, what else could you have asked for? A Game 7 loss in the Western Conference Finals, a Game 7 loss in the Finals? I feel like that should have had the same effect.
It's so unfair, though, to judge this poor Nuggets team who was on pace to at least tie what they did last year. And we didn't get to see. I mean, everybody has every season you have that period of swoon. We just never saw them like super fiery, but we did get like some really amazing stretches out of this team. I just hate that we are in this really incomplete. I mean, we've talked about this a bunch, but the team receives an incomplete for the season, but we have to look at it as though it was a failure because they didn't win. But nobody won.
they don't have an identity anymore. Because they kind of had that identity of the past happy team, and then we've kind of seen bits of like a defensive team, but then that's faded each the last.
Yeah, but we found the limit with that pass happiness. I mean, it got them to lose in the last game of the season and not make the playoffs. So their offense was humming along at a certain point, but they weren't a complete team. Like I think, like where we left off, they seemed as though they were much more positioned to make a deeper run because they had more things working in their favor. They weren't just reliant on being, a finesse team all the time.
I think that identity has a real thing about how fans engage with it. Like, the more you have an identity, the more success the season can feel like a success or whatever. I think the Nuggets do sort of lack that identity right now.
I think there's an important distinction to make, though, about the Nuggets and their fight. Like, the Nuggets do play hard. The Nuggets will climb into games that they have no business winning. They had that great record on the second half of back-to-backs. So they absolutely need some of what we're describing. I think we would all agree. But there's a different thing, I think. There's a difference between having a Kenyan who you just kind of know has your back, like in a sort of physical manner, and then just thinking like, I don't know, we're soft, we're going to roll over. I don't think they're the latter. I just think they have a bunch of sort of timid, mild personalities. And having one dude that would just be like, your antics aren't going to fly on our home court, or if you mess with Yoke, we're going to put you flat on your back. I think it would go a long way.
Yeah. Jordan, any other questions or anything you have about this? All right. Oh, good stuff. I'm going to pull you off. Going to get Phil on here. Phil, the returning.
Well, he's back.
Hey, I'm not afraid.
Not afraid. I like it. I like it when they fight back. They bounce back.
No, that was embarrassing the other day, Patrick. You left me just hanging there like a leaf in the wind.
Wait.
I thought we had something special. You've been on every episode I've been here for, and you're coming at me hot.
I actually had to look up that stat. It was closer than you would have thought. It was only like a 1.5 difference between those two.
Yeah,
all the same.
It was close. It was a very, very much a close. Look, it was an unfair question, Phil. It was an unfair question, but it's time to jump around the internet here. Let's take a look here. I found this hilarious. IT last night apparently got a ton of hate mail because people didn't realize he wasn't the old Isaiah Thomas.
Sometimes the internet just gives you a gift, man. That's an absolute gift.
Imagine him last night with his phone just blown up and being like, "What the hell, guys?"
I like Jordan as much as you do.
Yeah,
this is like 10 times more than our friend Matt Moore has to deal with whenever Matt Moore, the quarterback, makes an appearance.
Oh, yeah.
When Brandon Marshall, linebacker for the Denver Broncos, was in the league at the same time as Brandon Marshall, former wide receiver for the Denver Broncos and noted head case for the Chicago Bears, would like do something like, and he was like making political statements and stuff, and poor Brandon Marshall on the Broncos would just get hate mail over it.
Did you guys enjoy that moment where they mentioned the Super Bowl champion Denver?
Oh,
yeah, that was a big
Are you
moment.
kidding? Yeah, that was like
nice
a big mark
memory.
in Denver Twitter.
Yeah, we didn't miss that, Patrick.
We made
Denver
a
doesn't miss a
documentary.
Broncos.
You know what's funny is I would have legitimately been bummed if the clip was like, "Told y'all the Jaguars would get him." Like, I'd been so pissed if it was like a memory of the Broncos getting got.
Done. You're like LeBron, number one.
Yeah.
Goat.
Jordan had money on you guys, man. He took money off his teammates for that.
And then I just love him talking shit too. Like it's just I don't know. He just can't stop.
Bring that back down the hallway to pint.
It's crazy to me, Phil. He's so happy with winning $100. It's like you are Michael Jordan. Which part of it is just stoked that he won? That's it.
It's because he's getting it over on his teammates. That's
it's like a precursor to what Phil will be like once he wins one sticker pack.
Yeah, plastering him up. It'll be great.
Let's take another. We have some other clips here. Another thing I was very surprised by, Patrick, and I guess I shouldn't be, but a lot of these young players clearly have like no history of Jokic. So, for example, here, of
Jokic.
Or I'm sorry, of Jordan.
Did you just get Jokic confused with Jordan?
I'm telling you, it's too hard. It's too hard to do all of this shit at the same time. It is
very athleticism in the body. You know, it's just the same.
Damn it! This is not.
Look at
that. How long can it take Adam to?
I'll call my podcast buddy Kelly. He'll have this thing fixed.
Here we go. I got it. Are we good?
All right, let's see.
So this one had. I love Trae Young going, wait, MJ had all these accomplishments in one season, as if he literally didn't know. This stuff just blows my mind. This is he's talking about, was it the 89 season? The defensive player of the year, MVP scoring title. 88. It blows my mind that
what's funny?
Trae Young didn't know this.
They didn't mention he was the scoring champ. I guess you already know that, but last night when they ran through those accomplishments, they were like, he won everything, but they didn't mention the scoring champ, which he won every year also. So like they left one off, actually. That is funny, though, that people don't know. I thought everybody knew everything.
I thought so too. Like I knew
people don't know things.
Trae Young was born in 1988.
Yeah, but with Jordan, it's
1998. Sorry,
yeah, I was gonna say 98.
Like this stuff has lived longer than it even should have. You know what I mean? Like he's had more staying power. So you're right.
Totally.
It's kind of surprising that people that hadn't seen him said, "I loved watching him." It's like you're not old enough to have seen him.
Donovan Mitchell asking, did MJ have a trainer? Because like. Tim Grover is sort of like a big, it's a very well-known trainer.
Yeah.
So again,
Kobe's
it's another
trainer.
one of those things where it's like, it's Kobe's trainer and Dwayne Wade, and
it's weird.
It's just weird.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. The thing is like these guys know Michael Jordan as a concept. You know, like the idea. They know him as a myth, and so to actually get the details, I mean, that sometimes escapes. Even like I know all about football, and you talk about Dan Marino. I don't know all of his stats. Like I don't know everything he accomplished. Even though he was, I was watching him at the time.
Phil, did you know that Michael Jordan had a trainer and his name was Tim Grover?
I did not. Kick
him out.
It seemed like he never touched a weight before that year he decided to get big. I mean,
before he lost to the Pistons 2 times in a row.
But no one did back then. That's the thing. Like, I mean, you really, the culture was just different, right? Like Karl Malone lifted weights because he liked it, not because anybody. Right. If anything, they told him to like chill out some, like not lift as much. That just wasn't the thing back then. And also, what Rober pointed out something that I never really thought about, where he said, it's very difficult for these guys to put on any weight when they're doing that much cardio. Yeah. And that was just I don't even really ever think about that. I'm like, just get in the gym this summer. You're an athlete. Yeah. It's like they're still running like an incredible amount, especially in basketball. So
no, there was always the myth of it's going to mess up your shot. You don't want to lift too much. You don't want to get too big.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. LeBron was no weights until I think his first Olympics, and then he started lifting. I can't remember, but he was all plyometrics for the first 18 years of his life.
Imagine if he was just naturally Michael Jordan.
Yeah, they eat both of them, really. Yeah. No, it's pretty crazy.
It's crazy. All right, I love this one. This was making the rounds the other day, but look at the ref just dragging Pippen off the court.
Are you kidding?
You see this? Watch him. He goes down.
Different game, guys. Different game.
Yeah, a very different game. Like I'm gonna give it to him. The game was tougher. Like, hey, dude, you're kind of blocking the court here.
You know who would have appreciated that? You know who would have appreciated that?
The fact that Joey Crawford makes it so much better.
Carmelo Anthony would have appreciated that level of kindness rather than just be left for dead in the middle of a lane. Like if a ref would have at least like moved him out of the way or blown a whistle.
How different were the refs back then? That conversation with Rodman. Where he's like, I see all the shit you do. Like, just talk shit back to him. Like now, honestly, I feel like these guys get teed up immediately now, but at the same time, I feel like they have long conversations and maybe they get teed up for hard fouls, but they can complain and complain. I feel like back then, refs would just talk crap back to guys. Like, they had like personality. Like,
because it wasn't getting clipped. Because it wasn't going to go on Twitter the next day. Millions of people.
Yeah.
Phil, do you long for the days when refs dragged players off of the court? And
I thought the Joey Crawford thing was great the other night. I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't long for the days where they were fixing games, so that's good.
We have a new guest in the video here.
She had to make her first appearance eventually.
Go find mommy.
Adam, is that the one who took the screwdriver out of your car, or is that?
That was the one. That's the one that 2 weeks ago just completely totaled my car. And now she's totaling this broadcast.
Yeah, right.
This is what Jordan does. Jordan brings all of us together, even the little ones.
Yeah,
tears us apart also.
So here's a new one. The NBA has informed each team to assign one senior executive to facility hygiene officer.
Bob Weiss. I'd like to.
He's no longer with the team.
Doesn't matter. Go get him.
Just not Dennis Rodman. Not Dennis
Rodman. Who would it? Jesus, man.
Nice.
Everybody's getting corona. All right. Phil, who would be the Nuggets' hygiene? What was the word again?
Ooh,
facility hygiene officer.
The FHO.
I don't know. I guess Bowen always looks pretty sharp. He might be pretty clean.
Be hilarious.
That's a tough
one. He was just relegated to mopping stuff.
Yeah, just like could we have you have a player coach? Could we have a player facility hygiene specialist? Like, could it
hey
be
man,
Plumlee?
We're looking for ways to get MPJ more involved.
I want PJ on
more involved.
I want somebody with. I want the composure on this. Like he's got the focus. We need this guy.
Steve Hess would work. Steve Hess would work.
Let me see. I think I have one more on here. Do I? I can't remember. Oh yeah, here it is. This is an NBA NFL draft one. Hopefully you guys joined us for the draft cover. That was a lot of fun. That was one of the funnest things I think we've done here.
Kankar would love to do that job. He'd be
Chanchar?
so grateful. Chanchar. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, he'd be hyped.
Wait, what are you doing? Do you have to teach you his name? Bucket since '88. You're going to be on here in just 1 second. We're going to wrap up here with Phil, but I love this contrast here. I know everybody saw these photos. Yeah, like just okay. Look at this amazing
loafers.
This I don't know this guy. I've never heard of his name before, but I hate him. Like this photo is.
No, you should love him. He's the man.
Well, he looks like the man.
He's the freaking man.
Looks. You could just put Harrison's head on.
Yeah,
that
guy. That guy got a girl
in his dreams. Man. Yeah, you'd be in his Harrison's dreams.
And then look how quickly here's Zach Taylor. Look at this setup. It's like he's in the bathroom. He's like in a public place.
What you're doing is you're seeing the difference between Phoenix, which is a annex of Los Angeles, and Cincinnati.
The San Diego of the Midwest.
He's got two little water bottles here. Just what a crap. This looks like a scene from Saw or something.
You know, I'm sure.
Where is he? Why are there no windows? Is he in the basement?
That's what every building in Cincinnati looks like. He probably has a thermos of chili somewhere.
It's like
on his person.
It's like comparing Eric's background to Harrison's background.
Like week old. He's probably drinking like week old coffee. It's like that creamer that's just in like a powder form.
Yeah, Joe Burrow saw that and immediately demanded a trade. It was not pretty.
Yeah, that's why he was in such a bad mood.
Right on, Phil. All right, Phil, we're gonna let you go, buddy. Thanks for hopping back on. Peace. We have to bring on a new guest who Bucket since '88. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, guys? Can you hear me?
Yeah, man, we can hear you.
All right.
Well, so what do you want us to call you during this broadcast? It can be your name, or it could be something else. But
you can call me Peter. That's my name.
Okay, Peter. Peter, where are you?
Buckets is pretty good, though.
Buckets is pretty good. Maybe we'll just stick with Buckets. Actually, you know what?
We do have two Peters, so
we
Buckets
do have two.
Yeah, you guys got a lot.
So where are you calling in from?
In Portsmouth, Virginia.
Right on East Coast. What's up?
Home of the Portsmouth Invitational.
Man. It is crazy.
Home
like 10% of our people call from.
I've never gone to that Invitational. I've always wanted to, but I always forget to go.
I'm telling you, Adam, like out of every 10 people that come on this show, half of one person is from Denver. I mean, everyone else is from parts unknown. 9.5 out of 10.
So
I grew up in Boulder, so I am really from Colorado.
I was just gonna ask.
Shout out Boulder.
Yeah, I don't know. I must have missed Harrison. I graduated Fairview in 06, so maybe I missed you by like a year.
Oh yeah! Wow, really? So my freshman year was.
Ooh, look at this! I enjoy this story here. This is a little Fairview.
Old Gamble was a freshman when I was a senior.
So I was in Bo Gamble's grade.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Fun stuff.
I'm taken back.
Anybody got a yearbook? We could.
Are you ready, Buckets, to try your hand at the steps? Are you aware of how the steps works?
Oh, I'm very, very aware. Let's try it.
Are you how confident? On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you feeling about this?
I feel like it's gonna be like most people. I feel like the first questions are pretty easy, and then it gets really hard.
That's the right way to feel. Yep,
that is the way it works.
You get the layups, but you miss the half court heave. Absolutely.
All right, let's get it going. Let's see here.
Oh, I'm so nervous.
I know the music already just kicking in. It makes me nervous. Question number 1. Man, this one's too hard for a first question.
Jeez, man.
Thanks for being with us, Bucket.
Yeah, just kick him out. Like, what's the point?
What player goes by the nickname Thrill?
Bill Barton.
Woo! He did it.
Is that a too hard one?
I had to change it up, man.
Yeah, Phil's shaking his fists right now.
Don't forget that you can use Patrick if you need help
are
on
there
any of these.
15 steps?
There are 15 steps. Yeah, that's tough. It's really tough.
Yeah.
Nobody
It's
makes
a lot of
it.
steps,
That's
Patrick.
What's the furthest anybody's ever gotten?
14.
14? Yeah,
Well, you can-
Really?
13, I think.
You,
13, but-
you can get an absolute A+ and still fail this class.
We got this,
You can get a
Bucket.
14 out of 15 and still fail.
Let's do it, Peter.
Question number 2. Where did David Thompson attend college?
Use me.
North
Use
Carolina
me.
State.
Hey,
He doesn't even need me. Didn't even need me. Peter, you're my boy.
Unbelievable.
You're my boy, Peter.
Unbelievable.
I put
That
that,
was
one
the
in there.
second
I
Genie
put that one
Thompson.
in there because Patrick is.
If he asks all David Thompson questions, we got a shot, Peter. I can help you with the rest of the year from here on out.
Okay.
That's all I know about him.
That's all that matters, man.
Where did Carmelo Anthony attend college?
Syracuse.
Very good, man. He's not even hesitating. This is gonna be. I could tell this one will be a really good one. This will be.
Yeah, until your later questions come in.
What do I have in my pocket?
What number?
Number 4. In the off season, the Denver Nuggets often get a workout at this outdoor amphitheater in Morrison, Colorado.
Red Rocks.
Boom! You knew that one, didn't you, Patrick?
Yes.
I've been to Red Rocks.
The steps are loosely based on Red Rocks.
Number 5. This one's first.
Very
sticker pack.
loosely.
Who was
They
the
both have
starting
steps.
point guard for the Denver Nuggets on opening night of the 2015 NBA season?
Oh man. Patrick, was it Moutier?
I don't know. Did he happen to attend college at St. John's, Adam? Can I ask a follow-up?
Can I ask a follow-up?
Hold on. All right, so this was Jamal's 4th year in the league, and Moutier was drafted a year before that. So I'm pretty sure it was Moutier.
Deductive
Final
reasoning.
answer?
I love it.
It seems comfortable.
I'm gonna go with Moutier.
Hooray!
Glad I
We
was
won
here
a
for you.
sticker pack.
Glad I was
We
And
have
what a
won
great
sticker
choice
pack.
it was to start NBA.
All right, Buckets. Do you want to take your sticker pack and get out of here, or you want to go for the T-shirt?
So I'm gonna do a first in the show's history. I've got plenty of T-shirts. I'm gonna take the sticker pack.
Love it. I love it.
Do that.
I
love
respect
it.
it. I can't believe it.
I
I
love
didn't know
it.
that was an option.
Unbelievable. I didn't
I
either.
respect it.
He
All
walks
right,
away with
the
his head held
T-shirt.
high.
This is
Undefeated.
absolutely incredible.
I'm the
Absolutely incredible.
Hey, I'm shooting 100%.
Go out unbeaten and untied. You're like Jordan leaving in '93, never coming back, baby.
That's right.
Legendary move. Oh,
How does it feel? How do you feel
Mic
now,
drop.
having done this, made this decision? Do you feel okay about it? Did you regret it at all?
I mean, I guess it's the highlight of my quarantine. So
And we're praising him.
You know what?
He's the MVP.
He beat us. He beat the system.
He beat the system.
Figured it out. You were just supposed to take
I
stickers the
feel
whole
like
time.
stickers are underrated.
You know what?
Yeah, right, they are.
It's a really cool sticker pack, to be honest. Like, it's legit.
Man,
Adam actually know it's garbage. Like, who would want this? It's just sticky
You
paper.
put them in the right place. Stickers last longer than t-shirts.
That's right.
wow.
Phil, you know what? This is your show. Just go ahead and
You know what?
take
Yeah.
center stage here.
You don't need me here.
Yeah, you don't need us. Well, all right. I gotta say, I don't approve of the decision, but it's
I love
not
it.
mine
I
for
love
me to
everything
approve
about-
or disapprove.
Dude.
So
I mean, I'll keep going just for fun, but I want the stickers.
No, you can't keep going just for fun.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
you have to be
yeah.
un-American.
See, that's
Just
the
say,
thing.
yeah.
You're losing out on the fun. That's what
Yeah,
it is.
just to be clear, questions 6 through 15 are not fun. So there's no fun to be had.
Smart move.
Well, I'll try the 6 through 10 another time.
Yes, Peter,
alright,
you're my
alright.
man. I love
all
it.
right, Bucket, stay on the line. We'll get. We'll
Wait,
meet up with you here in
Peter,
a second.
what's your last name if you're cool saying it?
Plumber.
What's your?
Dude,
Yeah.
you play basketball, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Since 88.
I remember now. I remember.
Okay. Yeah, I
remember.
tore my ACL my senior year. I couldn't play. That's why I probably don't remember it.
Oh, bummer.
And now you can use some stickers maybe to hold that together.
But you dominated the steps, man. It's give and take.
Unbelievable.
There you go.
Impressive.
Really
Win
all
some,
that
you lose
matters.
some.
All right, everybody else, thanks for tuning in. Tomorrow, we're going to have the director of basketball analytics for the Denver Nuggets. Tommy Balchetis is on the show.
Let's go.
Wednesday, we're going to welcome in Matt Moore. Thursday, we are going to welcome in Seth Partnow. And Friday, we'll find out. Who knows? Could be,
We don't need to know.
It could be Patrick again. I don't know.
On Friday, we'll find out if I'm still
I'm
on.
not coming back if Peter's coming back. I didn't know I was going to be thrown up right at the end. No one's even going to remember me. From
No,
this
you two
podcast.
are
I remember
package
the last
deal.
shot. Yeah,
You two are a package deal.
so helpful.
Thanks so
Patrick,
much for
good
tuning
luck.
in, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow night.